Animal Crossing. How are you all? Hope you're all doing well. Let me put the music back on. I had some audio issues just a second ago, but good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everyone joining me here on Behance today. My name's Howard Pinsky, Senior XD Evangelist here at Adobe, and hello to Sam and Newton and One Sock Wonder, that's a great name, Allison and Patricia and Joss and Suyog. Nice to see some familiar faces in addition to some new people. If you are brand new to this, hello. Throw your name in the chat, let us know who you are, where you're tuning in from, and I'm excited to get going on this another daily creative challenge run. If you didn't catch last week's and the week before, Andrea was in the house. Not my house, that'd be weird. But Andrea was hosting these challenges. Oh, look at all the people coming in. Yasser and Anna and Maureen and Tang and everyone else. Welcome, everyone. I'm so excited to be back. If you didn't catch yesterday's stream, we kicked things off just as a welcome, just as a hello. We also gave you little tips and tricks about anchor links and things like that. We've got someone from Morocco and Italy. Hope you're all staying safe. Not just in Italy, but everywhere around the world. Hope you're quarantining. Got someone, Marco, brand new to XD from Palm Springs. Cars from Netherlands. Tim is new to XD. This is awesome. Mark says, is there a junior evangelist? Maybe there is. So, all right, what do we have going on for today? We have a lot of fun stuff. These are going to be a progressive challenge. Let me hop over to my screen and let's just dive into things. So, if you've never participated in these challenges before, head on over to behance.net/challenge/XD. That's where you're going to find all the good information about these challenges and a lovely big blue button at the top. Hit that button if you want to register and get notifications. If you don't want to get notifications, totally cool. You can also find these challenges right here on this page every single morning, right around 8 o'clock Pacific time. And if you don't know how these things work, it's very simple. Each day you're going to receive a challenge, Monday to Friday, except yesterday. Yesterday was the welcome. You can join us in our Discord community chat, totally optional, but I would totally recommend it if you do have some time and you do want to get feedback. And if I hop over to there, here is our Discord server. We have about 40,000 designers in here. Crazy. A lot of people in here. It's a great community. There's a lot of information about our challenges. We post when we're going live. If there's new features in XD, we post them in there. We also have a bunch of feedback channels. So if you are participating in this round of challenges, hop into the current challenge channel. That's a mouthful. And we have a ton of people just posting in here, including people who are already jumping the gun for this challenge. I'll talk a little bit about that in a second. And I'm going to be in here throughout the day giving feedback to all of you who are participating in these challenges. If you want to ask questions, if you want to give tips and tricks, or if you just want to chat about whatever, maybe Animal Crossing, I don't know, you can hop in Discord. Have a good time. It's 10 p.m. in Morocco. Oh boy, you should go to sleep soon. You're also going to watch me live every single day, Monday to Friday at about 2 o'clock Pacific time. And then you're going to share your work. You can share it on Discord like I just showed you, or on Behance using the keyword XD Daily Challenge. That way we can find it and hopefully feature some of your work in future shows. And then down here is where your challenges are going to unlock. Again, every single day around 8 o'clock Pacific time, a new challenge will unlock. And today we're going to be focusing on plugins. Now, I mentioned yesterday that these challenges, at least for the next 2 weeks, are going to be progressive. So sometimes, every single day is a completely different thing. But this time, even though we're going to be talking about and touching on very different things every day, it's all going to be building up on something. And I saw Allison in the chat, I think it was Allison earlier, who said, I want to use this to build up a case study. And this is exactly why we do these progressive challenges. So by the end of the 2 weeks, maybe if you want to take a little bit longer, maybe end of the month, you'll have a really nice portfolio piece that you can upload on Behance or whatever it might be, and you'll be able to show potential clients, which is really fun. When you're saying, I can't miss the stream, especially Howard Boopski. You know what? Near. Boop. All right. So let's hop over to Adobe XD, and this is the template for today. Go ahead and download that on the Daily Creative Challenge landing page, and we are going to get started. And a big shout out to Andrea Hawk, who not only hosted the last round of challenges, but she put together this amazing template that I had to steal. And it's just so cool, especially this section here. If you want some resources, let me zoom in here. she put this together as a component with a bunch of states. I thought, when I first saw this, I was like, Andrea is just next level. If you're watching, Andrea, thank you for this. This is so cool. Over here to the right within the properties inspector, you've got different pages of this component. So if you want resources for icons or fonts or photos or tutorials, of course, letsxd.com, great place. I'm a little bit biased, but go there, find all the information you need. Great template. Sharing your work down here, some information about our Discord, and of course, a shout out to Andrea, who graciously put together this template. All right, so we are going to get started. Again, our challenge over the next 2 weeks is to create a dashboard, and I would encourage you to, choose a topic and run with it, whether it's sports or whether it's, I don't know, Animal Crossing. I'm just so addicted to that game right now. Or burritos, for example. You can do a dashboard about whatever you want. And today we're going to be starting with the navigation bars. So here we go. I'm going to get rid of these guides because we don't need them right now. We'll get to guides eventually, but right now we do not need them. Let me move this back over here. Bam, there we go. All right, so here we go. We're going to start navigation bar. The first thing I want to do, very simple. I just want to maybe change the background color a little bit. White's not a bad color, but I might want to just introduce a little bit of color to this. Eventually, we're going to have maybe a container that goes over top of it, but I'm going to go over to the right over here under appearance, and I'm going to press on fill, and maybe I'll just add a little bit of blue. I don't want to go too crazy, because if you do something like this, it makes it very difficult to design anything over top of it. You get a lot of contrasting colors that blend in with each other. It's a little bit difficult. So I'm just going to add a little bit of blue, just a little touch of blue. Maybe just darken it just a little bit, just like that. Nothing too crazy. Again, you don't want to go wild with this, because we are going to add some wild colors, but very, very nice, very subtly, right? So we've got our artboard looking pretty fancy right now, and now we need to start building out that actual navigation bar. So I'm going to grab the good old rectangle tool over here to the left in the tools panel, and I'm just simply going to draw out a rectangle down my artboard like this. And you can make it as thin or as thick as you want. I'm going to make sure to place it nicely in the center of this artboard, at least vertically. And I'm going to round out the corners a little bit. And if you're brand new to Adobe XD, what's really cool is on rectangles and also polygons, you've got these little tiny handles on the inside. And what you can do is you can just pull on these handles to round out the corners, which is really nice. You can also, if you want very specific values, you can also enter it within your properties inspector over here. Let's say you wanted 24 pixels for the corners, you can do that as well. You can also adjust them on an individual basis. So if you wanted maybe just the top corners rounded and not the bottom, you can do that, which is nice. So I'm going to go ahead and just set that to 24 pixels. Now, again, white's a nice color. Some may argue it's not a color, but I might want a nice splash of color for this, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to press on fill one more time, just like we did with the background, but instead I'm going to choose a linear gradient. We're going to have a nice gradient on this navigation bar. Maybe the top color is going to be a nice pink, something, maybe right about there. Maybe I'll add a little bit of red in there. And the bottom color, I'm actually going to start by sampling this top color that I just chose. And I'm maybe just going to darken the color just a little bit. I'll pull a little bit of purple in there, and maybe I'll just darken it just a touch. Now you want to be careful when you're working with gradients. You don't want to go too crazy, and this is a very subtle gradient. I think it works. It's very pleasing, but you don't want to do something like this, right? Then there's just too much going on, especially if you're going to have elements over top of it like icons and profile photos and things like that. Dial it back. Just very subtle gradients, like a nice bright pink to a slightly darker pink. It looks pretty good. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and make sure to name this navigation bar in my layers panel, and we're done. All right, I'll see how, no, I'm just kidding. We have a few more things to do. So one of the things I'm gonna add is maybe at the top, we might want a plus button of some sort. Who knows what this plus button might be used for? We might be able to prototype this later on in the challenges. So I'm gonna grab my ellipse, draw one out. I'm gonna hold down my shift key to constrain it to a perfect circle. I can make sure to center it, and you're noticing those smart guides are helping me out throughout this process. I'll pop it about 32 pixels from the top. I can always adjust that later. And because, you know, the white on the pink has some nice contrast, I probably don't need a border around it. But on the inside, I might want a plus icon. Now there's a few ways you can do this. Of course, you can grab your text tool and just type out plus and call it a day, right? But we're gonna do something a little bit interesting. I'm actually gonna grab my line tool over here to the left, and I'm gonna draw out one line just like this. I'm going to round out the corners, at least the caps, and I might wanna thicken this out a little bit, just like that. 7, 6 pixels, something like that. I'm not too worried about the color just now, because I'm going to show you why in a second. So we've got one line. I can very easily duplicate this line with Command and Control D. Boop, there we go. And over here in the Properties Inspector, you can very simply rotate it. So I'm just going to rotate it 90 degrees, and now I have a nice little plus button. Now, the reason I'm not too concerned about the color of these lines is because I want to actually use them to make a cutout in that shape in the background, at least this circle. So in your layers panel over here to the left, go ahead and select all of these shapes. And then over here to the right, I'm just bouncing around all over the place. You can, whoops, no, I'm wrong, I lied. I completely lied. What we can do is you have to use, I threw myself off. I lied. They don't work with lines. You have to actually use rectangles. So in that case, I'm gonna actually move those out of here. Nobody saw that, right? I'm actually going to grab my rectangle, do the exact same thing, just like this. And I'm gonna round those corners out. Again, I'm not too worried about the color, just like that. Nobody saw anything, right? Yes, Joss caught it. Joss did catch it. Again, duplicate and rotate it 90 degrees. We've got our lovely lines. I can make them a little bit smaller if I wanted to, just like that. Beautiful. All right, now I'm gonna pop them into a group. I'm gonna call this add. I'm gonna get rid of these little borders, silly borders, and I'm gonna select both of these in my layers panel. And then over here to the right, we have our Boolean options. I'm going to press that, and now look at that. Again, nobody saw the thing with the borders. It never happened. Ignore that. Maybe that'll be a thing in the future. You'll be able to use borders, but it makes sense that you can't do that, right? Yes. All right, so now that we have our lovely line, because it is a Boolean object, we can always dive in here and we can make some changes. So you can notice up here, we can just grab add, we can move it around if we wanted to, and if we ever get to animating this thing, we'll be able to do that, which is gonna be fun. All right, so moving on from our plus button, we might want a few additional things. You know, going down, we might want some icons, and that's where plugins comes into play. Now down here at the bottom of your interface, you've got 3 icons. You've got one for assets, one for layers, and one for plugins. And we're gonna hop in there, and we're gonna press the plus button at the top to add a new plugin. And we're gonna grab some icons. So I'm gonna go ahead and search. I'm going to search for, you know what? I don't even have to do that. I was gonna search for icons, but we have the icons plugin, icons for design plugin right here. I'm gonna go ahead and press install. It's gonna install it to my plugins panel. And in just a second, there we go, if my internet was cooperating, and I hope it's cooperating considering I'm live streaming, we've got our icons for design plugin, and we can start searching icons. So maybe, for example, I might want, let's say, a dashboard of some sort, and I've got a great icon I can start using right here. Pops it at the top of your artboard. I can just pop it there, and let's go ahead, maybe let's look for a chart. Let's see, what chart looks pretty fancy? Got a lot of different charts. This one look from the material design. Looks pretty good. I'm gonna pop that there. I'll worry about the alignment and distribution in a second. And let's say envelope. Helps if I can spell properly. There we go. Or maybe mail, possibly. Yeah, there's a lot of different, maybe this one, or maybe this one. I don't know. We have so many different options we can choose. We've got this cool little paper plane that looks pretty fancy over there. We might also want a bell icon, and Suyog is asking what happened to Nucleo. I use Nucleo a lot for my icons, but I want to show off how plugins can really help throughout this process as well. So we've got our bell icon and maybe settings. So we've got something like this, our lovely feather settings icon. So we've got a bunch of different icons that we can use throughout this navigation bar. And before we get to distributing some of these, we may want one more element at the bottom to act as a profile picture. And to do that, we can very easily grab the ellipse tool one more time. And you're noticing as I'm moving this around, let me zoom in here. We have the smart guides one more time, and it's letting me know that it's now snapped to that left side. And if I hold down shift, I can drag out an ellipse that's the exact same size as this one up here. Of course, I can also dive into that Boolean object, copy it, and then paste it. But you know what? We're gonna just do this. Make sure it's also, let's say 32 pixels from the bottom. And it might be hard to see because it's on pink, but we have our also contextual information letting me know how far things are from the different sides. Someone missed the boop. All right, boop. There we go. There's another boop for you. All right, so we've got this. We've got a little bit of an ellipse here. We need an image, but we'll get to that in a moment. We also have all these icons that we have to do something with, right? So we've got these icons here. I might want to select them all. And I'm going to turn off responsive resize and just make them a little bit larger. Just a little bit. You don't want to go too crazy, just a little bit. Now, what you can very easily do if you wanted to make sure that everything is nicely aligned or distributed from basically this object at the top to this object at the bottom, which I'm gonna actually pull in just a little bit, just to give a little bit of breathing room in this navigation bar. What you can do is this. You can select all the objects inside of your layers panel. So I'm gonna rename this profile. I've got the profile icon over here, and I've also got the add icon. I'm gonna hold down shift and click, and now I have all of those icons and elements inside of that navigation bar selected. Now, over here, I have a few options. I can, one, align them to the center so that they all kind of snap in the center. I can also press this little guy up here, which is distribute vertically. And it's essentially going to it's going to look at the top object, it's going to look at the bottom object, and make sure everything else in between is nicely aligned, which is really nice. Now, of course, there's a bit of a problem, right? We don't want all of these icons to be black because it just kind of clashes with the navigation bar in the background. So I'm just going to simply change the color in the properties inspector, and now I have nice white icons. And everything's looking pretty good, right? Now, of course, we also have this section, this image at the bottom, this profile photo that it doesn't have a profile photo in it, right? That's where another plugin can come into play. So I have that selected. I'm gonna hop back into my plugins panel. And instead of using the icons for design plugin, I'm gonna hop into UI faces, which is one of my favorite plugins. That's what they're called. One of my favorite plugins, especially if you're using repeat grids. And we're gonna be using repeat grids throughout this project over the next 2 weeks. So I'm gonna hop into UI faces, and this will essentially grab faces from all around the web. You know, Unsplash is a great resource for royalty-free photos. You got IMDb if you're looking for celebrity-type photos, but there's also this source called "This Person Does Not Exist." And I would encourage you, maybe someone will post in the chat, go to thispersondoesnotexist.com, and essentially it's a crazy algorithm. You've probably heard me talk about this before. It's a crazy algorithm, I think it was created by NVIDIA, that generates completely random people. These people actually don't exist. So if I go ahead and select that and press apply, it's going to grab one of those faces from that service and pop it in there. And this guy, as the name suggests, is not a real person. So you can just go to press apply one more time. It's gonna do its thing, generate a new person, and there we go. So I can just keep pressing apply to generate these random people until I get something that I like, right? And the nice thing about this plugin and this service is that you don't have to worry about copyright issues, right? So I can put a border on this thing if I wanted to, just to separate from the background a little bit. And now we have a nice profile photo at the bottom. It's pretty crazy. I agree, Jason. It's nuts. So now the one more thing that we want to do before we wrap things up is maybe we want to somehow indicate, let me actually go to my layers panel. I'm just going to group all these icons, make sure it's all centered. It is. We may want to indicate what section of this navigation bar we're on. So maybe we're on the dashboard, for example. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to get a little bit fancy. I'm going to grab my rectangle and I'm going to draw one out just like this across my navigation bar, right? I can also make sure to move it inside of the icon section if I wanted to. I can also move it down below these icons, and maybe just so I can see that icon up there, I'm going to decrease the opacity just a little bit. Turn off the border, make sure everything snaps. Now, I want to get a little bit fancy with this. First thing I'm going to do, I'm going to round out the corners completely. So I want this to kind of act as almost like a container or a cutout of some sort. Danish is asking, wait, how do they do that? I have no idea, but there's some crazy algorithms out there that just blow my mind. So I've got this little container in the background. I may not want the corners on the right hand side to be rounded, so I can hold down my Alt or Option key and simply drag those corners back up. Now here's where we're going to get fancy. We kind of want this section here, when it gets to the right hand side of the navigation bar, it's going to kind of flow up. And Eric is asking, how come you can't copy and paste from AI to XD anymore? You should be able to. I don't believe anything has changed, but if something's not working, go to Twitter, tweet at Adobe Care, and someone will look into it for you. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to double click on the shape to access the path. And I may want to add a point somewhere right about here. And let me zoom in so you can kind of see what we're working with, right? There we go. I'm going to add a point right about here and then about the same location down at the bottom. Now, if I were to simply drag these, it's very sharp lines. We don't want that. So I'm going to simply double click to convert these into curves. And I'm just going to bump these up. And I'm just holding down Shift to bump them by 10 pixels. Maybe I'll go a little bit more, just like that, right? Let me zoom out. And what I can do now is I can bump this back up to 100%. I'll select that icon and maybe I'll just change the color to this pink, right? And now we kind of have an, sort of an active indicator of sorts that's letting us know that we are on this section. Now, we're obviously noticing a problem, right? This shape that we just created doesn't really match the background. So there's two things we can do. We can either grab our eyedropper and sample the background, or if we know that we're going to be having things behind the navigation bar, and I'm just noticing now, if I go ahead, I can make some changes. I might want to just grab these 2 points, move them inwards a little bit so we have a nice curve just like that. I can also grab these and really make sure that this curve looks really nice, right? I can just adjust that to my liking, and that's looking pretty good. But we can also use this newly created shape, which I'm going to call cutout, to kind of actually cut out of the navigation bar. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy it. I'm actually going to just remove it from the icons folder, select both of those layers, and then just cut them out just like we did before. And now we have a really nice, legit cutout. So if we did go ahead and add an element behind this navigation bar at some point in the future, we won't have a problem of having a shape over there. So there we go. And now what's really nice is eventually when we get to animating this thing, possibly, you never know what the future holds, we can actually animate Boolean objects. So we can grab that one, we can grab the cutout, and we can just move it, right? And we can of course change the color of icons and things like that. So the whole thing is very customizable. And this really sets us up for the future. In this challenge, we might animate this navigation bar, we might add text links. There's a lot of really interesting things we can start doing as this challenge goes on. But for today, we're gonna just about leave it at that. I might want to make a few very small changes to our cutout, just like that. Nothing too crazy, just thicken it up just a little bit, and there we go. That's looking pretty fancy. Now, I do want to point out that if you won't be ever able to participate in this challenge throughout the entire 2 weeks, every sample file that you'll be able to download every single day at around 8 o'clock in the morning. Let me actually hop back over to my face so you can see me. Every sample file going forward will have the previous challenge within it. So tomorrow's sample file will have the completed navigation bar. So if you just want to jump into 1 or 2 of the challenges, or just 7 out of 9 of them, you'll be able to catch up very simply. So that'll just about do it. Thank you so much to everyone joining me. Hope you picked up on something during this challenge. I'm going to be back tomorrow at 2 o'clock Pacific time with challenge number 2. We're going to continue building out this dashboard, and I'm really excited to see what all of you come up with. I'm going to be in Discord on and off throughout the day, so I'm going to be giving feedback on your navigation bars, and I would really encourage you, If you do feel comfortable in Adobe XD, get creative. Start adding new elements, experiment with the cutout, experiment with whatever it might be. Have fun with this, right? You don't have to necessarily follow the exact order of this challenge. Just knock yourself out and have fun. So thank you, Joss and Tim and Akin and Lena and Suyog and Anna and One Sock Wonder, great name again, and Michelle and Jack and Raphael and Allison and everyone else joining me. I'm gonna be back tomorrow. Stick around in just a few minutes. We've got Kathleen coming up with a sketch party. Should be a lot of fun, and I will see you all tomorrow.